You're going to want to sit down for this one. I guarantee you that. When I started experimenting with water, I didn't realize that it would go this far with it. I managed to build a small circular static gadget, craft, that has potential. This is my first one. The second one I had to destroy because of toxic mold. But this one, of course, didn't work, so I get to keep it. I decided to build a cigar-shaped craft because that's just the next step in the evolution. So I looked at some pictures and I began. And this is what I came up with. Now I can't take credit for this, which sounds silly, because I've seen it before. In the early 1970s, a guy came to our school from the government. Not NASA, didn't say where, just government. With him he had a gold painted suitcase, metal, that he said he had the computer for HAL 2000 from the movie 2001. During his demonstration, as he spoke back and forth to HAL 2000, it was kind of cool. And then he started speaking about how we recently went to the moon. And yes, we did. After that, he reached back on the table and he pulls out a model much like this. His was a lot nicer. He said, one day we're going to fly to the stars on a craft like this. And he began to explain it, as far as him saying that we basically understand what goes on here and here, and the reasoning for the spiral, which is the Fibonacci spiral on either end. But out of all that we understand, we don't know what goes on down here in this area. Well, as you can see, I do. And this is based upon this craft here. If you were just to draw it out, stretch it out into a cigar shape, and then add the Fibonacci spiral. The guy also mentioned, you'll know that when you got the spiral right, that it'll lay flat on the edges here, and as it comes across a rib, it'll be vertical. Flat, vertical. That's an aspect of polarity, as it also hits a rib specific to that polarity, and that happens on both sides. This spiral here is not as good as this one, but you get the basic idea, even though it's made out of cardboard. The bottom, or substructure, is the second or major negative. On the top here, you have positive and you have negative. This configuration is known as an organic, or the trident variation, where the trident itself is picking up electricity from this side here and this side here, forcing it down into the negative, and you can kind of see a wire. And then that electricity or static charge is then projected outward on each side. As it's projected outward, it goes to the end of the craft via the Fibonacci spiral, and then it's drawn inward on the main shape, so that you have a flow that goes into the main area here, down, over, up, and in. So it's recirculating on both sides. The craft operates off of a coronal discharge, a simple spark. Each time there's a spark, it releases energy here that was stored here, so that you have the two negatives fighting each other, or splitting the negatives. so that you get a type of alternating current, and that's how it relates to static, because static is also seen as an AC charge. Now this design, I pretty much guarantee you, this was ultimately designed by Victor Schornberger, because it's got the spiral, it's got his fingerprints all over it as to who originally designed it, based off of either a photograph or a drawing from the government. Like I say, this is organic. There is a step above organic, and it uses the same basic process. But you have to understand the organic method before you can take it a step above. Now the step above uses this shape here. Now that might seem odd. Of course this whole thing seems odd. But this shape here, what that represents is a drawing that I made. As of 10 years ago, I drew a picture like this for somebody who I thought would know. His first question was, what's underneath? Which tells me, as of 10 years ago, they still didn't know what was underneath. He didn't ask what it was. He knew what it was. This is a power source. This is it's not a nuclear, it is a fission-based system. Or on the inside of the sphere is highly radioactive material and mercury and a lot of light that comes out of it. The colorization, you can see it flow like the aurora borealis. That's a side effect or an effect because it's basically fission, just light being released as particles are injected into the sphere. The sphere itself once was considered a ceramic polymer. Now ceramic and polymer don't go together, but a ceramic glass polymer does, where the polymer itself is used as a protective coating when particles are injected into the sphere. As they fly around on the inside, they diffuse or release their energy that was put in there upon the making of the material, whether it was steel or whatnot. So this is what they were shown, but you can't get here unless you go here first with the organic method to understand exactly how things work. So 10 years ago, they didn't know. Today, they will. Also, I'd like to point out, on the back of the craft here, this simple cardboard structure, it's not a booster, it's not a thruster, it's an emitter. It emits maser, as in amplified microwaves, instead of laser, which is amplified light. Now the maser, it is a weapon, it's also a tool. One of the methods that it's used is for mining, strip mining. So in other words, a craft will approximately, once it aligns, about 60 degrees to the Earth's surface. What is described as electric fire is shot out of it. It hits the ground. As that maser hits the ground, it instantly vaporizes any water in the Earth's surface, exploding it upward, turning solids into dust. The dust that is there is burnt. So a craft would simply have to fly across a surface, and as if a putty knife scraping off paint from a surface, it removes material. Now that description can be seen in the Nazca Plateau, where you have a layer of ash and then on top of the ash is dust. And that can be explained from a major mining operation, as could the Punapunko structure that was upheavaled can also be described from the explosion or the sudden vaporization of water in the soil exploding upward. It's mind-bending. It doesn't seem real, but it is. We're going to fly to the stars on a craft, much like this. And just as a footnote, if you see one of these in the atmosphere, and you see it go 60 degrees, and you're at a city down here, leave the city, because it's going to be destroyed. So, frightening, fascinating, and mind-bending. Pretty cool, huh?